Here we go. Chapter 3. Fiber. So I feel like we pretty much went over the nature of light. You guys have any questions on how light going through a cable works? No? The one thing I want to reiterate is that different colors have different wavelengths. Different wavelengths travel at different speeds. That becomes a problem the longer your cable is, especially if you have multimode fiber versus single mode. So we're going to get to that shortly. So you guys are familiar, which has a higher frequency, ultraviolet or infrared?
Ultraviolet.
All right, which one has a shorter wavelength, ultraviolet or infrared?
Ultraviolet.
What does that mean? If it is a shorter wavelength,
So the distance between.
no, not like what a wavelength is, but that means it can what? Go through things better. A longer wavelength means it what? Goes further. Yeah. Now that's yeah, that's about it. All right. So this is where yesterday everything kind of died. So multimode, single mode. Two different types of fiber optic cable. The cable that I gave you guys yesterday was single mode, and what that basically says is that it has a very, very small core. It's like 9 microns thick. Micrometers, I think. So that's thinner than this right here where I'm looking at you guys through. Oh, fun fact, do you know if you don't have your glasses, if you do this through a small enough hole, you can see? Like, corrects your vision. So if you take off your glasses and you just have a really, really small hole, and I mean like barely anything, it like fixes your vision. Enough to where you could read something.
That's really weird.
Yeah, I can't remember why or whatever, but it works. Did it work for you?
Whoa.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Nikki or Paul? Gosh, Paul. Little bit, yeah. No, not like this, Michael. That's really hard. You got like it's way easier if you just put it right up against your eye.
Works for me.
But don't you have you have glasses in, or you just
My right eye is really bad. It's like -4.
don't you have? Do you have contacts in them?
I can't see.
No. What? What's your other eye?
Like 20.
-20?
20. Positive 20. Normal.
Wait.
Perfect.
I don't think it does. It go positive? I don't think it goes positive.
Well, no, it's perfect.
No, I think it's.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this one's 20/20. This one's bad. -4. Yeah.
It's not working. And I know I have that. I have to get glasses before I start drawing. I can't read that.
Oh.
I can't read that.
All right. Well, that was a fun little fact. Also, if you ever lose your glasses and you need to see, grab your phone, turn your camera on, and look at that and look through that. Life hacks. All right, back to actually what we're supposed to be talking about. Multimode and single mode fiber. So again, there's two types of fiber. One, single mode, has a very, very small core. Multimode has a much bigger core. Now, what that means is that, and I'm trying to find, does it actually tell you the width of the cores? Yeah, here we go. So I should probably put this on the screen so those of you at home, all 3 people who watch these videos. So if you notice here, we're going to get to what this stuff means over here, but this right here, core, is typically 7 to 9 micron or micrometers, which is small. Multimode can be anywhere from 5 to 100 microns or micrometers, but typically you have 50 micrometers and 62.5. 50 micrometers, I think, can transmit data 3 times as far as 62.5 microns. And then multimode can go, multimode basically has an infinite distance that it can travel. With a small issue there, with a small caveat, you need amplifiers or repeaters, which with multimode, it's a little harder to do that. So let's scroll back up. Okay, so again, we have a core, cladding, protective jacket. A core is where the light travels. You have cladding around it, which is also a form of glass typically. That prevents light from bouncing outside of the inner core. That's basically all that is. Numerical aperture, don't really need to know. that too much, but that's a substance's or a fiber's ability to accept light. So you guys should have all read this already. So multimode fibers, single mode is essentially uses a laser beam. A laser laser beam Morse code with single mode, essentially. Multimode is more of like a flashlight. It's a little bit wider. You can send more. It's not sending more information. It just can send multiple modes of light. Now that's a really vague description, and I couldn't find a good one online as to what the difference is. Essentially, the biggest difference between single mode and multimode is the distance it travels. And the distance it travels, multimode can only go like 2 kilometers. So that's 1.2 miles. Single mode can go across like the ocean. Okay? So single mode is really, really good for long distances. What was that? Oh, yeah, I gotta take care of that later. What's up?
So is multimode faster?
No, the way it works is they both can get 10 gigs plus, 10 gigabits per second. So it, for any like use anything nowadays, it's typically distance. Or, and the distance, a single mode fiber is less attuned to losing the signal or dropping it the longer it goes. That's multimode is limited to about 1.2 because it's thicker and light has to travel more. It like bounces more. You lose signal way sooner than with single mode. Single mode is basically, with a laser beam you can shoot it and 300 feet away you can see the red dot. With a flashlight you can't. That's kind of the difference between single mode and multimode.
So what's the draw to multimode?
It's cheaper, typically. I think. Yeah. So, yeah, and again, so you have in multimode, you have 3 modes of light. One goes along the axis, so it tries to go right down the middle. You have middle order, which is reflected at the interfaces. This sort of stuff right here, don't really know that you need to know it, which sounds really bad coming from a teacher. But I'm also trying to, like, looking up single mode, multi-mode, the difference is really, let's just watch the video that goes over the difference. This is the boring 1-minute one, and we'll come back to this. Really hope I don't get in trouble for showing this, but all rights belong to the owner. Alright, this is not my video.
Today we'll be looking at the difference between single mode and multi-mode fiber optics. Single mode cables have a small diameter 9-micron core, allowing one pathway of light. Multi-mode cables have 2 different large diameter core sizes, 50 and 62.5 micron, allowing multiple pathways of light. 50-micron cables provide longer link distance and higher speeds than 62.5 micron cables. Single-mode cables have theoretically unlimited bandwidth, whereas multi-mode cables have a limited bandwidth, with 50-micron cables providing 3 times the bandwidth of 62.5 micron cables. Single-mode cables are more suitable for long-distance applications, while multi-mode cables are better suited for short-distance applications. Single-mode and multi-mode cables are available in both duplex and simplex options. Duplex fiber optic cables consist of 2 fibers, usually in a side-by-side style. They are used in applications that require simultaneous bidirectional data transfer, such as fiber switches, servers, and modems. Simplex fiber optic cables consist of a single fiber. They are used in applications that require one-way data transfer. Single-mode fiber optic cables are typically used in applications spread out longer than a few miles, such as telephone companies creating connections between switching offices. Multi-mode cables can be used in most general fiber applications, such as connecting fiber optics to a desktop, adding segments to existing networks, or in small applications, including alarm and security systems. BPI offers a full range of fiber optic cables, including single mode, 50 and 62.5 micron multi-mode, simplex, and duplex.
That help?
Yes. Now I feel like really buying BPI products.
Yes. So yeah, the longer you need it to travel with fewer data loss, you need single mode. If you, like they said in the video, if you need to go from multi-mode to, or if you're doing something in your house or even in here, you can use multi-mode. And I had an image, let me see if I can find it real quick. It was all about the comparison between cost of the two. Let me, if I can just see that, if I can find that really quick. Wavelength. This, I hate when I delete. This is why I have so many tabs open. I always, it's because I'm like, I don't want to have to find this again.
Could you put the videos on the resources?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just gonna leave the video. I was just gonna leave the, so you can watch the video in the video.
Oh yeah.
Okay, hang on. I almost have this. That one I already have open, which doesn't help me. And then single multi-mode. Is this it? I feel like such a bad teacher right now. Here it is. Okay. So single mode is a lot more expensive. So a single mode to go 10 kilometers, it's like a transceiver or whatever, $7 to $6. But once you get to the actual 10G or 100 gig single mode is $2,800 versus $400.
Oh.
For one cable. For like one cable.
This looks like it's a transceiver. It's a Cisco copy transceiver, which again I don't really know 100% without it. Like, I don't have a Oh, so that's not it.
It's the wire and the transceiver
So that's just the transceiver.
for the 2800.
Yeah, so 20. Yeah, so here's a 3300 Cisco 100G dual rate. Yeah, I don't know. 1310 nanometer. That's a single mode then. I think. Let's scroll up here. Of course, it doesn't say. So let's go to our book. Do you guys know what wavelength single mode versus multi-mode goes on?
The wavelength?
Yeah, this is something you'll need to know. You'll need to know the delineation between the two. So it's 1310. 1310 and higher is single mode. And then below 1310 is multi-mode. With the fiber home to business in the 1600s. You'll need to know that number. Knowing 1310 is important.
Yeah.
So then let's scroll down. All right. So with multi-mode, you basically, I'm not sure how an input pulse gets put into 3 different wavelengths. I just don't. But what happens is you have this input pulse and you have 3 forms. You have 3 modes of light: low, middle, and high. The low one travels right along the middle. The low one tries to get bounced twice, I believe, is reflected twice at the interface. And then highest order mode is reflected many times and makes many trips across the fiber. So that one goes back and forth apparently. So again, why it's 3, I'm not sure. That's just how it is. And so what I really want to get to is this graded index fiber and step index. Where's the step one? Step index. Okay, so I'll get to that in a minute. Graded index fiber Note what's the difference between this diagram right here and this diagram?
Curvy.
It's curvy. So they actually, within the core itself, the index of refraction changes so it doesn't bounce, it just bends in the, it's kind of like a mirage. You know how light bends and you see water when it's really hot? You actually, obviously you're not seeing water. That's what's happening. This light is bending inside this core, so you don't have as many chances for it to hit the edge and maybe and be dispersed out. How they're able to do that, I have no idea. It's super cool that the core has one index of refraction and then it grades out so that light bends. Blows my mind. I think it's awesome. But you do need to know that graded index fiber, what it is, because they'll give you an option. Should you do step index, graded, or single mode multi, and you'll have to pick. They can handle higher bandwidths and provide longer lengths of transmission before pulse dispersion effects destroy intelligibility and introduce bit errors. We'll go over what bit errors are in just a sec. So you can kind of see the difference between the output pulse here, the input. So this is what they're trying to send, this little, and it comes out. Here we get, and we get a little bit more. So it's a little closer, so you have less transmission errors. Graded index of 500. Yeah, that's. I will be straight up with you right now. The only three numbers you need to know are less than 10, 50, 62.5. I'm not going to do a cladding of 125 microns. Oops. It's multimode is 56 and 62.5. So above 10. Single mode is under 10. Okay? So you will need to know the distinction between the core diameter of single mode and multimode. That's it. Yeah, so you do, so this right here, 50-50 or 50-125 and 62-125, that all fiber optic cable, the standard is 125 microns thick. So the whole cable is 125. So in single mode, you can think of less than one. So if you took that cable I passed around the other day, and you look like the single mode core is 1/10 of the width of that. Less than 1/10 of the width of that. Right? It's like a hair. It's like a human hair inside that thing that's transmitting all this data. It's crazy. Single mode fiber, they have diameters about 7 to 10 microns, and they allow one path of light. This is why they're able to go so much further and have fewer errors. It's one path of light. So if you look here, this is a diagram showing you the output of each input based on the type of fiber cable. So input is this. In a single mode, this is direct refractive index profile. I'm not going to grade you on that at all, so you don't need to know that. Basically what it's doing is that it's showing that the core is really small in relation to the cable itself, versus this is, you notice how this middle part's bigger than this one? That's signifying that it's a multi-mode fiber, because multi-modes have a thicker core. And then this one, because it's graded, what does graded do? It makes the wavelength what?
Different.
It doesn't bounce, it
Curves.
bends. That's why this is curved here. So if you see these symbols, that's what they mean. So the output of a single mode fiber, boom, is almost the exact same. Here it's a little different, multi-mode, because you have so many things going on. You have a slightly wonky. So this is why you can't mix single mode and multi-mode. Everything has to be multi-mode, everything has to be single mode. Otherwise, a single mode fiber, single mode receiver is going to get this when it should be getting this, and it'll freak out, won't be able to read it. So everything has to be single mode, everything has to be multi-mode. What's fun? Do you have a question?
No.
No? Okay. And then graded index, again, gets it a little closer to what it actually is, but it's still off. So again, you need to have everything single mode, everything multi-mode. Single mode they're for the long haul, so they can go a lot further. Mode field diameter. I skipped that. What? Yeah, power distribution. Single mode diameters. Oh, yeah, we're not gonna go. You don't need to know that. Fiber attenuation and dispersion. This is, we're not gonna spend, because we have 11 minutes and there's a 5-minute video I want to show you guys. So these are just different ways that you lose signal in a fiber optic cable. Attenuation is a fancy word for signal getting weak over time. And you do that by scattering, and then you have absorption, macro bending, and micro bending. Scattering is, it's just the light kind of fades, right? Light just fades. Even a laser, if you were to point it at the moon, it might cover the entire face of the moon. I can't remember the angle at which a laser disperses, but so dispersion, or with the light spreading out and getting weaker because it's getting, few photons here are lost, few photons are here are lost, few photons here. Over time, you lose it. Like with a flashlight, if you do that and you go down a hall, you can't see the end of the hall. But with a laser, you can see the laser at the end. That's because the light gets spread out over per foot much less. So with a flashlight, you may lose 1,000,000 photons per foot, right? Just going off to the side, you don't see it. Whereas with a laser, you may only lose 1 per foot. So you can see it a lot further. So that's the main thing, is just scattering. It accounts for 96% of loss. The scattering is caused by refractive, whatever. That's just its scattering. Absorption, a second factor, gets absorbed by the actual, light gets absorbed by the actual ions in the glass. Macro bending is when the bend of a cable is too tight, it bounces out into the cladding and you lose it. Micro bending is where you squeezed the cable really, really tightly, and it messes with the cable in there. Make sense? You will need to know the difference between those. So a macro bend, what does macro stand for? Large bend. Can you have a large bend in a cable with a zip tie? No, you have to have a large bend in your actual cable. And then micro bending is something squeezing it really tightly. Oh, here's a little note. Oh wait, no, I need this. Attenuation. So notice the attenuation here is way less in single mode than it is in multi-mode. So the attenuation in decibels per kilometer. So you lose 2.5 to 4.5 per kilometer in multi-mode. You lose 0.25, so a tenth in multi-mode. So you can go 10 times as far, kind of, sort of, according to this. So this is bit rate error. Or no, what was it? Whatever. Yeah, bit error. This is what happens with light as it goes further. The light gets dispersed and it gets screwy. So this first one is supposed to be, I gotta start the video, 10101010. That's the message that's being sent. And as it gets further, light disperses and it gets read as 11111111. Make sense? So the further something goes, the more the light gets spread out and the worse it gets. All right, well, I just got to start the video. Here's my notes if you guys want to. Thank you, Linus Tech. Well, not Linus Tech Tips, but this is Tech Quickie.
If you've ever built a tree fort, you've probably also tried to send a secret message to your friend using Morse code and a flashlight. And fundamentally, fiber optic networking works in the same way, encoding data in pulses of light that travel around the world, carrying our phone calls, business conferences, and important internet data. But now hold on a second. How exactly do you send light over great distances and still manage to extract information from it? I mean, fiber optic cables have to carry light for literally thousands of miles, like across oceans. Yet, if you've ever shined a flashlight down a long hallway, you'll know that over any more than a short distance, the light scatters and eventually becomes too dim to make out. Well, that is where optical fibers come in. Those really skinny tubes that make your Christmas tree look nice without having to string up any messy lights have some special characteristics that allow them to work over incredible distances. The main way that fiber optics behave differently than your flashlight is that they take advantage of a physical phenomenon called total internal reflection. You see, a fiber optic system doesn't just shine light down any random hollow tube. Instead, optical cables are made up of a core of glass or plastic surrounded by an outer layer called cladding. Both the glass and the cladding have an inherent property called a refractive index, which is basically a measure of how fast light can travel through something. For the system to work properly, the cladding needs to have a slightly lower index of refraction than the core. Now, sometimes this is achieved by using pure glass, that is silicon dioxide, for the core, and then doping the cladding with chemicals to lower its refractive index, while other times the core itself can be doped to raise the same value. Either way, this difference means that if light hits the cladding at a shallow enough angle, it will be completely reflected at the same angle instead of passing through the cladding. That means that it can continue on down the fiber in a zigzag pattern indefinitely. Well, not quite. Although in theory, the optical signal should just keep going all the way until it reaches the other end of the fiber, the pesky real world always has a way of throwing a wrench in the pudding. No matter how high-end and pure an optical cable is, there will always be some imperfections, even if they're so small that you could only see them at the molecular level. And these will cause some of that light to scatter, weakening the signal over distance until eventually it can't be understood by the equipment at the other end. So to combat this, long-distance fiber runs are assisted by repeaters or amplifiers. A repeater gets placed at a point down the fiber where the signal will have weakened significantly, but it's still strong enough to be read. Once the light hits the repeater, it's turned into the corresponding electronic signal, which is then turned back into light, much as it was at the origination point, and then sent along on its merry way. Repeaters come with a latency and a complexity cost, though, so many modern long-distance systems now use amplifiers instead. These gadgets have optical fibers which are doped with chemicals that directly amplify light when the weakened signal hits them. So the ions in the fibers themselves will re-emit the same signal, but much more strongly than what came in, and it continues down the cable. In this way, optical fiber runs can be designed to be really long, making them a more viable choice for long-distance communication than copper. Optical fiber is not only more cost-effective than copper wiring, it's more power efficient, and it even goes farther without requiring a boost. Also, because it's thinner and doesn't cause electromagnetic interference to the cables around it, it's common to bundle a bunch of optical fibers, each of which can carry multiple wavelengths of light into one large cable, making it possible to transmit enormous amounts of data without taking up too much space. This versatility means that fiber optics have found uses outside.
All right, so you guys need to read the at least one or two sections of chapter 3. I'm gonna put that in academy or on campus, and those of you at the field trip, you need to do it too. So that'll be in the next 10 or so minutes. I'll have that, what you guys need to do. Yeah, and we'll finish chapter 3 next week. Have a good one.